Once upon a time, a magnificent king and a beautiful queen lived in the picturesque valleys of Russet. The king passed away suddenly, and the poor queen had to leave the grandeur of the palace and move to a small, simple house with her 3 beautiful daughters. In their modest home, they kept a cow and tended carefully to a small cabbage garden. One morning, the eldest daughter noticed that a large portion of their cabbages was missing from the garden. This surprised and worried her. She wondered how this could have happened. Was it the work of an animal, or had a thief sneaked into their garden? She quickly informed her family about the situation. The others rushed to the garden, discussing the mysterious incident. Everyone was puzzled. How could this have happened? Finally, the eldest daughter decided she would stay up that night to keep watch and uncover the mystery. The family agreed with her plan. As the night deepened, silence enveloped everything, and the moon shone brightly in the sky. The eldest daughter wrapped herself in a blanket and sat in a corner of the garden waiting. Hadn't waited long when a huge ogre leaped over the garden fence and entered the cabbage patch. He walked straight to the lush green cabbages, pulled out a large knife, and began cutting them, filling his enormous basket. While he was busy filling his basket, the eldest daughter mustered her courage, approached him and asked, "Why are you taking our cabbages?" But instead of answering, the ogre grabbed her and tossed her into the basket along with the cabbages. Then, taking massive strides, he ran away. The ogre's palace was high in the sky among the clouds. When he arrived, he emptied his basket onto the floor. Along with the cabbages, a frightened and disheveled girl fell out. Before she could say anything, the ogre glared at her angrily and said, "Listen, girl, you must do exactly as I say. You will take my cow to graze on the hill. Then you must shear wool, wash it, separate the threads, comb it, and weave it into cloth for me. If you fail, remember the consequences will be dire." With that, the ogre left his palace and disappeared into the depths of the forest. Terrified of the ogre, the girl did as she was told. She took the old cow to graze on the hill. When she returned, feeling hungry, she placed a pot on the stove and started cooking porridge for herself. As she sat down to eat a bowl of porridge, she suddenly found herself surrounded by a crowd of tiny dwarves with golden hair. They all shouted at her, begging for porridge. The princess looked at the little dwarfs disdainfully and said mockingly, "Not a single grain is for you." Hearing this, the tiny dwarfs vanished, and the princess happily ate her porridge. But when she began working on the wool, she realized she couldn't complete the task. No matter how hard she tried, she failed to finish the ogre's work. When the ogre returned and found her work incomplete, he roared in anger and threw her into the chicken coop as punishment. Back at the queen's small home, everyone was worried, wondering where the eldest daughter had disappeared to. They decided that the second daughter would guard the cabbage field the following night. As the night deepened and the soft light of the moon began to glow, the second daughter took her blanket and sat near the field. The air was cool, and an eerie silence seemed to blanket the surroundings. It felt as though everything was asleep. As the night wore on, an unsettling stillness began to engulf the field. Suddenly, from far away, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed. The ground trembled as if an earthquake had struck. It was the ogre, approaching with his massive, heavy frame, entering the field through the fence. His footsteps shook the earth, and his deep, heavy breathing echoed through the air. Without delay, he began tearing cabbages with incredible speed. The second daughter tried to stop him. The ogre grabbed her and tossed her into his enormous basket. Then, carrying the basket, he ran back to his palace. Upon reaching his sky-high palace, the ogre dumped the basket onto the ground. The second daughter tumbled out along with the cabbages. The ogre sternly warned her, "You will take my cow to graze on the lush green hill and then create beautiful fabric from the wool. If she failed to do this, she will face severe consequences." As the ogre left his palace and disappeared into the depths of the forest, the second daughter, trembling with fear, took the cow to the hill to graze. When she returned, she prepared porridge for herself. As soon as she sat down to eat, the golden-haired dwarfs surrounded her, begging for some porridge. The girl looked at them disdainfully and told them to go away. The dwarfs vanished into thin air, leaving her to enjoy her porridge. However, when she began working on the wool, she realized she couldn't complete the task. No matter how hard she tried, she was unable to wash, untangle, comb, or spin the wool as required. When the ogre returned and found her work incomplete, he roared with anger and threw her into the chicken coop alongside her sister. There, the two sisters remained trapped, unable to escape. The youngest daughter was the only one left with the queen. This brave girl went to her mother and offered to keep watch over the cabbage field that night to discover what had happened to her sisters. Initially, the queen hesitated, unwilling to put her last daughter in harm's way. However, seeing her daughter's determination and persistence, the queen reluctantly gave her permission. The girl took her blanket, gathered her courage, and went to the cabbage field to stand guard. The night grew deeper, and darkness enveloped the surroundings in an eerie stillness. The air was thick with silence, as though it was bracing for an unseen catastrophe. As the night deepened, the sound of heavy footsteps echoed from afar. A giant entered the field, crossing the fence with ease and tearing through the cabbages swiftly. The youngest daughter was startled by the sight. Before she could react, the giant grabbed her and tossed her into his basket, taking her to his palace just as he had with her sisters. When the giant returned to his grand hall, he took the girl out of the basket and gave her the same instructions he had given her sisters. The young girl listened carefully and nodded without protest. The giant then left the hall, disappearing into the depths of the forest. As soon as the giant's heavy footsteps faded into the distance, the youngest daughter got to work. She led the old cow to lush green pastures so it could graze to its heart's content. When she returned, she was hungry and quickly prepared porridge to fill her stomach. However, as soon as she poured the warm porridge into her bowl and was about to take the first bite, a commotion erupted in the room. Little yellow-haired dwarves appeared in groups, their tiny hands reaching for her bowl with gleaming eyes. Each dwarf begged, "Give us some too, give us a little to eat." The girl shared her porridge with them. Once the dwarves had eaten their fill and left, one lingered behind. "If you have work for me, give it to me," the dwarf offered. "But I won't be able to pay you for it because I have nothing. I won't ask for any payment," the dwarf replied. "Very well," the dwarf said, "but if upon my return you can guess my name, I will tell you where your sisters are." The dwarf took some wool from her and disappeared into the night. That very night, a beggar woman knocked on the door, her voice faint with exhaustion. "Let me stay here for one night," she pleaded. "I am weary and hungry." The princess led the beggar woman outside behind the trees for safety and offered her bread and cheese. "This palace is not mine," the girl warned. "It belongs to a giant. If he sees you, neither of us will survive." "Have you seen yellow-haired dwarves?" the princess asked. "They are strange creatures who appear suddenly and always demand something." "No, I have never seen such beings." "Thank you for your kindness," the beggar woman said. The beggar woman headed towards the mountain in search of a place to rest. At the mountain's peak, she found a cave with a small glowing opening. She entered into it. She found the place very comfortable to sleep. She found a glowing crack inside the cave. Peering inside, she saw an astonishing sight. Countless little dwarves were bustling with energy, washing wool, sorting it and spinning it on their wheels. In the back of the cave, a tiny yellow-haired dwarf was directing them, humming a cheerful tune. "My name is Beautiful, I spin wool, that's my rule." The beggar woman quickly left the cave and rushed back to inform the princess of what she had learned. She informed the princess about all what she saw the next morning. The dwarf returned, carrying rolls of colorful, beautiful cloth. "Now tell me, princess," he challenged, "what is my name?" "I believe your name is Beautiful," the princess said with a smile. The dwarf admitted defeat and revealed that her sisters were trapped in the chicken coop. The youngest daughter finally found her sisters. That night, the three sisters devised an escape plan. They filled a basket with precious jewels, covering it with grass to avoid suspicion. When the giant returned in the morning and saw the exquisite cloth, he was impressed. "I also prepared a gift for my mother," the princess said kindly. "A basket of fresh grass for her cow. The grass in her area has withered, and she's been worried." The giant, pleased with her diligence, readily agreed to take the basket of grass to her mother the next morning. The 3 sisters hid beneath the grass in the basket. When the giant woke up in the morning, he remembered the task the girl had assigned him. He got up immediately and headed outside. Near the door, he found the basket filled with grass. The giant picked up the basket and made his way to the girl's mother's cottage. Upon reaching there, the giant told her that this gift was sent by her youngest daughter and that she was under his care. Hearing this, the mother became worried and quickly devised a plan. She told the giant to leave the basket outside. As soon as the giant stepped outside with the basket, the mother poured a bucket of boiling water on him from the window. The giant cried out in pain and died on the spot. The 3 girls emerged from the basket and ran to embrace their mother. Now, with newfound wealth and happiness, their days of hardship were finally over.